Здесь Сколково традиционно. Несколько слов. Во-первых, конечно, спасибо вам всем большое, что вы здесь. Погода, прямо скажем, специфическая. Но между тем, полный зал. И вообще, если вспомнить первую конференцию, у нас было всего 800 регистраций, а в этом году 5000. Не знаю, сколько людей придет, возможно, придет поменьше. 90 спикеров из 10 стран. 100 проектов было зарегистрировано на эту конференцию сегодня. Все наши партнеры с нами. И, безусловно, самый, может быть, не самый главный, но самый любимый из них, да, это Скалтех, университет Скалтех. Проект, который развивается вместе со Сколково. За эти годы Скалтех создал уже достаточное количество стартапов, которые в том числе стали резидентами IT-кластера. И, собственно говоря, на этих словах я приглашаю на сцену Александра Петровича Кулешова, ректора Скалтеха, академика и большого друга IT-кластера Сколково.
Добрый день, коллеги. Во-первых, спасибо, что вы пришли сегодня, несмотря на омерзительную погоду. Это свидетельствует, конечно, прежде всего об интересе самой тематики. Ну и, во-вторых, конечно, мы должны поблагодарить организаторов, потому что действительно я вот из окна наблюдаю уже 3 дня, какая суета здесь происходит с конструкциями, со строительством павильонов и так далее. Мне очень приятно, что Сколково, что все наше объединенное Сколково, Сколтех, конечно, мы не разделяем это особенно, взяло на себя лидирующую роль в той тематике, которая в нашей стране находилась еще несколько лет назад в полнейшем забвении. Робототехника, наверное, это одна из 3 областей, в которых, скорее всего, у нас наблюдается самое большое отставание от мира. И нам, конечно, это отставание необходимо как можно быстрее преодолевать. И здесь я хотел бы подчеркнуть то, что выступал руководитель IT-кластера, это не случайно. Дело в том, что любая робототехника, или почти любая. Хотя слово робот сейчас стало на самом деле очень лукавым. Например, программы, которые занимаются финансовыми операциями, игрой на бирже, они тоже называются роботами. Но мы прекрасно понимаем, что, вообще говоря, имеем в виду не совсем то. У всех у нас робот ассоциируется с чем-то антропоморфным, из рассказов Тормозимова, из фильма «Терминатор» и так далее. Хотя на самом деле, конечно, робот — это любое устройство, которое может выполнять человекоподобные функции в каком-то смысле. И поэтому IT-кластер здесь совершенно случайно выступает в качестве лидера этого движения, поскольку на самом деле отстаем мы, конечно, не в приводах, отстаем мы не в механике, скорее всего, отстаем прежде всего в интеллекте. В интеллекте это том сортей, который закладывается в робот для навигации, для управления, те сенсоры, которые должны быть частью робота для обработки информации. Вот отставание, конечно, идет прежде всего в этом направлении. Мне очень приятно, что здесь собралась абсолютно разновозрастная аудитория. Это говорит о том, что старый млад этой темой интересуется. И я думаю, что вот это вот сочетание, что называется, молодости и опыта, может дать очень хорошие результаты в будущем. Не буду вас больше мучить. Спасибо большое. Успехов на конференции.
Спасибо большое, Александр Петрович. Конечно, Скалтех не единственный наш партнер. Нельзя не упомянуть и не пригласить на эту сцену ректора университета Иннополис, собственно говоря, Александра Геннадьевича Тармасова. Благодаря Иннополису у нас такое количество спикеров. И, кстати, Иннополис вносит огромный вклад в развитие робототехники. Пожалуйста, вам слово.
Спасибо. Еще раз доброе утро. Когда мы... Вообще, университет Иннополиса довольно новый проект, я не буду останавливаться на деталях, желающие могут найти всю информацию в интернете, посмотреть на нашем сайте. И вот робототехника — это одно из ключевых направлений, в котором мы начали двигаться. Мы уже активно работаем в этом направлении, выполняем гранты, например, по движению антропоморфных роботов. Вот недавно купили очередной подумали, что надо бы им дать имена, почитали затылки и поняли, что как-то роботы стали уже как-то таким общим словом, что ли. То есть как вот компьютер или, не знаю, машины в свое время. И то, что им надо давать в качестве имени, я вот вспомнил, если читал Хью Гернберга произведение, где люди из будущего, они именовались как роль 124C41+. Вот у меня ощущение, что теперь роботам надо давать именно такие имена, потому что они уже более-менее самоочевидные вещи. Вообще, кино, как уже говорилось, показано, ну, современно, не знаю, даже в Метрополисе, наверное, как какой-то, так сказать, угроза человечеству, которая заменит их рабочие места. Ну, большинство, наверное, если подумать, понимает, что за последнее время эволюция демонстрирует, что часть профессий пропадает, часть появляется. Недавно, например, пропали замечательные профессии, там, на оператор компьютера или еще раньше машинистка из Машбюро, но ничего, каких-то вот больших демонстраций на улице по этому поводу я не видел, поэтому большинство людей, которые опасаются, что роботы там вот придут, вот как в фильме «Канзатер», женщину вынули, автомат поставили. Поэтому опасения все-таки слишком преувеличены. Вообще роботы на самом деле они гораздо шире и больше, чем, как вы отмечали, что, чем то, что мы себе представляем, для устройства. Вообще к роботам относят практически все, что имеет какую-то обратную связь, имеет возможность воздействовать на какие-то устройства или работает в таком реальном времени. Это не только те самые роботы, но и не только даже финансовые роботы, которые чисто виртуальные, но и некие такие системы управления движением беспилотного автомобиля или вообще масштаба города, или такие вещи, как Power Grid, то есть система управления энергопотреблением, особенно энергопроизводством из источников типа зависящих от ветра. Это все робототехника, и когда мы для себя убирали вопрос, что такое робототехника, куда нам нужно двигаться, то ответ на этот вопрос очень сложный. Направлений очень много, и действительно, как отмечалось, что, к сожалению, у нас по очень многим областям в технике есть существенные проблемы, связанные с отставанием. Когда мы определяли для себя некоторые направления, естественно, мы с чего-то начали, и сегодня будем выступать из наших профессоров. Профессор Маркис, выпускником известного места MIT дела. Тем не менее, что конкретно делать, мы определить хотим вот и сейчас. Мы совместно с развитием интернета собираемся в ближайшее время провести опрос. Поэтому я вот обращаюсь к представителям компаний, которые здесь находятся, самых разных, от стартапов до больших государственных компаний. Как вам придет запрос на опросы, просьба не выкидывать его в спам, или еще хуже, не отдавать его в HR-департамент, а ответить, сказать, то, что вы действительно думаете, а не то, что вам нужно сделать в течение ближайшего полугодия. Наша работа в области робототехники, мы уже набрали студентов-энтузиастов, и мы хотим точно понять, куда нам надо двигаться, какие области непосредственно как уже готовы развиты, как и те, которые будут развиваться в ближайшее время, необходимо заполнить специалистами. И вот это для нас один из самых существенных вопросов. Сейчас мы открыли лабораторию интеллектуальной робототехники, лабораторию когнитивной робототехники и так далее. Но все-таки, чем больше и более правильных направлений, востребованных в индустрии, как в ближайшее время, относительно через несколько лет, так и в горизонте 5, 7, 10, 15 лет, тем лучше. Поэтому я приглашаю заинтересованных людей, заинтересованные компании к сотрудничеству, а тех, кто собирается учиться в этом направлении, серьезно рассматривать возможности использования для этих целей нашего университета. Но он имеет достаточно большую специфику, преподавание ведется на английском языке, поэтому если вы захотите, то вам придется, так сказать, немножко постараться для того, чтобы иметь возможность сотрудничать. Спасибо за внимание. Еще раз приглашаю всех желающих в сотрудничестве с нами.
Дорогие друзья, есть еще один интеллектуальный партнер, без которого большинство инициатив робототехнического центра IT-кластера Сколково, да и вообще, может быть, я бы сказал, робототехнического сообщества не развивались бы так быстро. Это, знаете, институт, уникальный институт, на самом деле, с ярко выраженным геном технологического предпринимательства. Это Московский технологический институт, и я приглашаю на эту сцену Евгения Владимировича Плужника, первого проректора Московского технологического института. Пожалуйста.
Доброе утро, уважаемые друзья. Хочу также поприветствовать всех на 4-й конференции Сколково Robotics. В ближайшие 10 лет наша жизнь очень сильно изменится. И сегодня кто-то добирался на такси, кто-то на автобусах. Через 10 лет мы будем добираться уже на беспилотных машинах, на беспилотных автобусах, вероятно. Да? Вместе с нами здесь будут присутствовать интеллектуальные электромеханические агенты, и, может быть, там, не знаю, вместо меня или вместо Альберта будет выступать уже его как робототехническая копия или его агент какой-то. И думаю, через 30 лет жизнь изменится еще больше, и она будет уже совершенно не похожа на ту, которая нам привычна сегодня. И это дает, конечно, всем нам огромные, просто колоссальные возможности. Этот рынок растет огромными темпами. Каждый из нас здесь присутствующих может создать стартап, может работать в огромной компании и за счет этого становиться успешным. Но кроме возможностей, безусловно, как уже и предыдущие докладчики говорили, через некоторое время мы столкнемся, а можем с вызовом, с основным вызовом, да, можем ли мы противостоять самопроизводящимся интеллектуальным машинам. И как вид, скажем, как ген машины, да, можем ли мы противостоять технологическим машинам. Время покажет. Я думаю, все зависит во многом и от нас, по той причине от того, каких роботов мы будем создавать и какие алгоритмы в них закладывать, они такими и будут. Всем желаю успехов, спасибо большое.
Спасибо большое. У нас еще одна маленькая музыкальная пауза. И следующим пунктом у нас будет подписание с нашими европейскими партнерами, с компанией Innaeco, которая проводит выставку Иннароба, неизменным партнером и который является уже второй год фонд Сколково, Сколково Robotics. И я приглашаю через пару минут на подписание Катрин Симон, руководителя, и Игоря Пугачева. Инноэко, Франция. И Игоря Богачева, вице-президента, руководитель кластера информационных технологий.
Nice to have the rating. That's the only word I know how to say in Russian. It's so sorry. I'm really proud of being the partner of Skolkovo Robotics, and I strongly believe Russian people should be really proud that your country is embracing these new technological breakthroughs that robotics is going to give our society. I've been impressed by the visit of Skolkovo Robotics premises yesterday, and I don't care about the rain. I move to Russia, to Skolkovo anytime. I think it's an amazing project, an immense project, and that you're going to contribute to that change with great breakthroughs and great innovations. So you're going to be one of the most innovative center and the most immense innovative center on robotics in Europe and probably in the world. So I'm so proud to be a partner. Thank you. Спасибо.
Дорогие друзья, краткая предыстория вопроса. Мы, робототехнический центр Сколково, в прошлом году первый раз участвовал в европейской выставке конференции народов. И мы, а самое главное, что наши проекты были настолько поражены уровнем конференции и теми возможностями, которые наши стартапы там получили, что мы, во-первых, решили ежегодно участвовать в народах, и, во-вторых, собственно, подписать это соглашение для того, чтобы наши связи стали еще теснее. Как говорит мой коллега, руководитель роботцентра Сколково Альберт Ефимов, инновация – это контактный вид спорта. Совершенно верно, нужно больше общаться, больше быть вместе. В инновации Европы нет никаких границ, поэтому я надеюсь, что это соглашение даст возможность в первую очередь вам, собственно, технологическим предпринимателям в области робототехники, продвигать свои технологии на европейский и мировой рынок с помощью или при содействии инородов. Так что спасибо большое.
два подписания. Вторым подписанием сегодня будет подписание соглашения с нами и фондом Сколково. Я приглашаю вас на сцену.
Я думаю, что сегодня подписанием соглашения мы усилим нашу работу вместе с Колковым в данном направлении, выработаем то, что нам поможет всем проделать в завтрашний день, которым, безусловно, сегодня будет беспилотное транспортное средство.
Спасибо большое. Во-первых, спасибо вам большое за то внимание, которое вы оказываете такому молодому проекту, как Сколково. Мы действительно очень сильно, я бы так сказал, продвигаем историю беспилотного транспорта и верим в нее. И поэтому партнерство с таким ведущим научно-исследовательским институтом, как НАМИ, безусловно, для нас в первую очередь большая честь. Вот. Ну а для инноваторов, для технологических предпринимателей в области беспилотного транспорта хочу сказать, что наш план создать центр исследований и тестирования беспилотных технологий совместно с нами на территории Сколково, для того, чтобы все те проекты, которые занимаются беспилотниками, могли иметь базу не только, скажем так, инфраструктурную или финансовую, но и в том числе научно-исследовательскую для развития своих проектов. В этом, собственно говоря, есть суть подписания сегодняшнего соглашения. Так что, надеюсь, вы будете довольны и будете пользоваться этими возможностями.
Спасибо большое. Хочу напомнить, что сегодня для вас играет ансамбль «Возрождение». И я сейчас представлю вам исполнителей. Это Кристина Ходова, виолончель, сотрудник БМТ-класса фонда Сколково с момента его основания. Ирина Воеводина, виолончель. Наталья Сахарова, виолончель. Вера Лукашевич, виолончель. Дина Дизякина, концертмейстер. И художественный руководитель оркестра Большого театра, дипломант международного конкурса Максим Золотаренко. Спасибо большое. нашей конференции. Коллеги, я хотела бы попросить вас всех сесть немножко поплотнее. У нас очень много людей стоит, не может зайти. Мы можем еще чуть-чуть подвинуться, я вижу, чуть-чуть сгруппироваться, и у нас все смогут сюда зайти и сесть. Спасибо большое. Друзья, те, кто стоят в арке, пожалуйста, проходите. Сейчас мы переходим к конференционной части нашей конференции. Технология немножко получилась. Пока я расскажу немножко. Дальше у нас есть гость Андрей. Она приехала к нам из Кремниевой долины. Вчера она сказала, погода у нас соответствует сегодняшней как раз погоде в долине, так же как в Сан-Франциско. Андрей, основатель и генеральный директор Silicon Valley Robotics, она нам будет рассказывать, что же делается все-таки в долине, какие у нее впечатления от того, что она увидела здесь полку. Гости у нас приехали вчера, успели посмотреть многие лаборатории, мастерские, про свои впечатления и как это в долине. Сейчас, секундочку, подождем, когда у нас есть минуты. Приглашаем Андрея на сцену.
Thank you so much for inviting me to sunny Skolkovo. This is my first visit to Russia.
Just a moment, I'm sorry. Уважаемые господа, еще, наверное, плотнее, чуть-чуть. Потому что есть возможность все-таки уплотниться и дать место зрителям, которые не нашли себе еще место. I'm asking to be more condensed. Уважаемые господа, которые стоят в проходе, есть места? Проходите, пожалуйста, есть места. Просто нужно найти себе место, вычислить в этой толпе. Пожалуйста, не стойте в проходе, потому что еще есть места. I'm surrounded. Please.
Well, again, thank you for the invitation. This is my first visit to Russia, and having seen what is happening here and so much exciting robotics, I would be delighted to visit Skolkovo anytime. And of course, if you're ever in Silicon Valley, please come and see us. No matter how good things are or how much robotics you think there is in the rest of the world, I am sorry, Silicon Valley is winning the robotics and the AI race, hands down, no question. It's just been a bit of a secret until now. When you think of Silicon Valley, you think about almost every other sort of technology. And yet, this is really where a lot of robotics is happening. It's not boring old industrial robotics. Germany and Japan can win that. It's all the rest of the new future-facing robotics and the AI. It's service robotics. It's social robotics. It's combining software and hardware together in interesting fashions, and it's creating new businesses. Now, this is the sort of robotics that Silicon Valley excels at. And it does so because we have been building the ecosystem to support that. And we've been building that ecosystem for a rather long time. As it happens,
In 1848, there were 800 settlers in California. That's all, 800. And then they discovered gold. And 250,000 people raced there. 2 years later, California became the 31st state of the United States of America. And when they became a state, they had to create laws, a code. Now, when I say that commercialization and innovation is in California's DNA, I mean that literally. I mean, what is the DNA of a state but the codes and laws that govern every action that you can take within that state? Well, California, newly created state, needed to create laws to govern it. And they looked around. All of those lawyers that had flocked to California in the gold rush had spent the last 20, 25 years rewriting the laws for New York. And they weren't adopted. None of the conservative states in the US wanted a new constitution. But California said, hey, we need one. We'll take this new one. And that is the foundation on which Silicon Valley is actually built. Those simple little words saying that every person has the right to work at whatever they choose. It seems really obvious. But the fact is, the other 30 states all had something called a non-compete clause that was designed to protect businesses. And a non-compete clause says, well, if I'm building a robot with arms for you, and I decide I don't like the job, and I go to start my own company, I can't build a robot with arms for 1 year or 2 years, depending on the law. Because my state believes in the non-compete clause to protect the interests of businesses. Now that's what the rest of America had, and that's where California, just by chance, more or less, adopted something that was the foundation of Silicon Valley. They said, we do not believe in a non-compete clause. You can work wherever you like, whenever you like. Not only that, but if you signed a non-compete clause in Boston, if you come to California, we don't care. We do not recognize it. And what that has led to is the emigration of innovation from every other state in the United States to California. Because you can. You can go there and start whatever company you want. And it makes good sense. If you're looking for a job, you can move to California, and if you don't like the one that you started with, it's very simple to move to the next one. Now, it's been shown that the more innovative a person is, you can measure that. You can say, how many patents do they want? Well, the more patents you have, the more likely you are to move out of the state with a non-compete clause and come to California. And you can see this in the number of patents that California holds compared to the rest of the United States. Okay? That's kind of a significant difference. How does the United States stack up globally? Well, globally, the United States holds more patents than anywhere else in the world. But we have some bad news, actually. The last couple of years, China is filing patents faster than anyone else in the world. And that is something that I think we all need to pay attention to. You might ask, where does Russia fit on this? And it's not good news. You're down somewhere 10th or so. You have about 10% of the patents, or fewer, filed than the countries at the top end of the scale. Now, patents are just one aspect of innovation and robotics for that matter. I actually think that the most important IP is what I call the innovation potential per square inch. And that's how you achieve a critical mass to keep innovation going, so that the chain reaction continues. And that's a combination of people, money, and ideas. And just like any good chain reaction, We understand it's not just that it becomes self-sustaining. The denser and hotter you make the original conditions, the faster the reactions happen. And that is where Silicon Valley excels. The ideas, these are some of the research universities in Valley and research departments. And I just wrote down the ones that I know about in robotics. Every major company is opening a research and development in the Valley. What does that mean? Well, Stanford is a great example of the secret sauce. They've added entrepreneurship to their research institutions. And this goes all the way back to Fred Terman in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, who is credited with really bringing industry and research together and creating the first techno park. There were industrial parks before, but he said, let's make one proviso. Stanford has land to create an industrial park, but not any old industry. Let's make it specific to tech innovation industries and startups. And he encouraged all his students, he was an engineering professor and then went on to become the provost of Stanford University. He encouraged all his students to go out and found companies. And Silicon Valley's very first startup in a garage was created by two of his students, Hewlett and Packard, in 1939. And they introduced a lot of the startup culture as well. They addressed each other by first names. They gave their employees stock options. They didn't wear suits. They had a casual approach, a friendly approach, and an open approach to doing business. And that was the start of the way. Those companies went on to create the culture of Silicon Valley, and then we added the money. Now, you cannot underestimate the impact of adding the money to anything. But, like many things, Silicon Valley didn't invent venture capital. No, it was started on the East Coast. We just did it best. And so it flourished in Silicon Valley. The original venture capital firm was formed as a public company, and the partners could not take the profit. The profit went to the stockholders. Well, the new breed of venture capital firms worked out that you had to create better incentives for the partners. So that was the start of the modern venture capital industry. And from 1978 on, the growth in venture capital was pretty significant. But I put the list of the early giants in the field up. They are still flourishing, they have huge war chests, and they're still making pretty good investments, most of them. But there's a whole new breed of firms. This is another thing that didn't start in Silicon Valley, we just did it best, and that was the semiconductor industry. So the story here, William Shockley was one of the inventors of the transistor at Bell Labs on the East Coast. Now, by all accounts, Shockley was not a very pleasant person to work with. And he didn't last at Bell Labs, so he decided to go into teaching, and then he decided he better move to California. I mean, his mother was sick, this was the reason, but he decided he was tired of teaching and he wanted to start another semiconductor company. He could not get anybody from Bell Labs to come to California to work for him. Maybe the weather in California wasn't good. Maybe Shockley wasn't so good to work with. So he had to reach out. He looked for PhD students that he could persuade to come and work for him in his new semiconductor company. Within a year, the 8 students he persuaded to come and join him left. They walked across the street, they said, it's California, and we can. And they created Fairchild Semiconductor. Now, Shockley referred to them ever after as the traitorous 8. The rest of Silicon Valley refers to them as the fathers of Silicon Valley, the Fairchild and the Fairchildren are all the companies that started. Because within a year or two, Fairchild created spin-offs and more spin-offs. Within 12 years, the founders of Fairchild had moved on to start 31 other companies. One of the companies they started was Kleiner Perkins, a venture capital firm, which then invested in many more companies. It's been calculated that more than 70% of the firms in Silicon Valley today can trace their roots back directly to Fairchild. They're their children. And the total value produced by those companies is greater than $2.1 trillion. So those fair children produce value greater than that of most countries. Canada, for example, or Spain. What does this have to do with robotics, you might ask? This is the environment in which robotics can flourish. It's an environment of commercialization, because I think this is the significant problem facing us in a really exciting new era of robotics. These are some of the companies doing robotics in the Silicon Valley, and they cover every aspect. We do have industrial robotics, not a lot, maybe not large companies, but what we have is some interesting new technologies in many vectors, and new articulations, new arms, new software, new ways of doing industrial robotics. And we have all of the other areas, which you could call service or consumer robotics. There is a lot of exciting things happening in logistics. It's working in manufacturing, it's working in commerce, it's working in warehouses. It's helping move stuff around. Mobile and manipulative robots. And then of course you have these sorts of mobile robots, autonomous vehicles. And every time I turn around, there's a new company launched. And I go, oh, I wonder what those people were doing. I forgot all about them. So just 2 days ago, I believe Otto, an autonomous truck startup, announced what they were doing. And you go, how did that happen? They're well funded and they're building autonomous trucks. Who thought that Silicon Valley was going to be the hub of the automotive industry? And that's a change that I've seen happen within the last 10 years, pretty much within the last 5 years. And autonomous vehicles travel in many ways. There are ground vehicles in the universe, the drones in the sky that we've all seen. But there are drones in space, and there are drones in the sea. Liquid robotics, for example, they consider themselves a sensor and data company. And that's where the successful model for drones and aeronautical robotics really is. It's in providing a service, providing imagery, providing information. It's not enough to build something that flies. You have to build something that flies for a purpose. You have to be able to forget that it flies. Okay? You have to just be focused on what is it doing? It's delivering me information that I need. That's when it's a successful business. Okay? I could talk too much about agriculture. This is the area that excites me most, and I'm looking forward to seeing some agricultural robotics startups here. Because this is where robotics is ready to operate, and it's ready to make a huge difference in the world. We need to double food production in the next generation. The population is increasing, and the sort of food that we want is requiring more resources to produce. We do not have more land. In fact, we're losing land. And the environmental impacts of the agriculture that we do today, it's not good. We need to do things better. We need to grow more food on less land. We need to produce less waste. There is so much that robotics can do to help humanity in the area of agriculture. Another area is in the area of health, and we're seeing that ranging from social robots that can interact with you to help you with medication and treatment, to surgical robots that can help operate on you. and a whole range in between, diagnostics and cosmetic surgery. And a new category of robots, retail robots or kiosk robots. And there are some working in hotels, there are some working in malls, in airports, in shops, some doing security. There are some starting to work in restaurants and kitchens. I mean, the possibilities are starting to open right up for robotics working in so many different ways. And yet most of us, the only robots we've seen are consumer robots and educational robots. Really, to me, this is the least exciting area of robots. They're cheap, they're small, they're not terribly sophisticated because you can't afford to make them terribly sophisticated. So if you're making a robot startup, I encourage you to look at health and agriculture and logistics as the most interesting business areas for you to work in. Now these technology tipping points, they're not limited to Silicon Valley. Whether you're growing a robot startup in Australia, or Russia, or Europe, or the US, you have the benefit of all of these technology tipping points. There's a lot to look forward to in the future, but I will jump straight over. The pace is changing rapidly. I'll just say 1 year ago I was very proud to say there has been $1 billion invested in robots in the last 5-year period. That was 2009 to 2014. Okay? That made us kind of a grown-up industry, but still kind of small. But, you know, venture capital firms were paying attention to robotics that had never really been paid before. But in 2015, 44 investments, totaling $1 billion, were made in 1 year. And in 2016, a month ago, Cruise Automation was acquired by General Motors for $1 billion. Now that's a small San Francisco startup doing autonomous vehicle technologies, and one robotics company worth $1 billion. So I think this is making us all very interested in what the future will hold. How do I get to be a great robotics company? Well, this is the last thing I want to talk to you about. That gap between research and the real world. Okay? This diagram is a little bit wrong. The point at the middle, where you need the most work, is not in developing the technology product, it's in developing the product. It's about developing product market fit. It's about understanding your audience. Okay? This is something that we've invented methodologies in the last open innovation, yeah, that helps, but really it's about scientific method in startups. And you can call that lean startup methodology, but really scientific method, test your assumptions, validate your riskiest assumptions quickly. This is such a repeatable methodology that it's now being used by the US National Science Foundation for grant recipients. It's being used by the Department of Defense. It's being integrated into almost every university curriculum, both engineering and business. It's how most accelerators design their programs. These steps get you to success as a startup quickly. Or you work out very quickly to stop wasting your resources on things that don't work. Okay? Far too many times you build a product and then you try to make the product better and better and better, and you never take it outdoors and test it against the people that you think are going to buy it. Now you can start testing your product on people before you've built the product. There are a lot of ways you can do this. So if you have heard about lean startup methodology, then it's not that easy to do. It sounds simple, build, measure, learn, but there are a lot of ways to do this, a lot of steps, and I have to say that most people just churn around in the build stage. Okay? They really do not go out of the building and test their assumptions against real customers. Okay? You need to be rigorous about it, and that customer development methodology, that is one of the tools of the lean startup method, is perhaps the most critical, that's the most simple, and it's the hardest thing for you to do. So I'll just finish with something that Rodney Brooks says. Robotics isn't so much a technology problem anymore, it's a business model problem. It's not enough to build some cool technology. You have to find something useful, something valuable for it to do. The easiest way for you to get funding, and there is a lot of funding out there, but if I'm an investor, I want to believe that there is a market for what you're building. And I will know that if you've validated your assumptions and if you've developed good customer market fit. And I think if there's anything that's keeping Silicon Valley ahead of the rest of the world, it's the competition to do this methodology is extreme. If you're in Silicon Valley, the people that succeed are the people that do this fastest and best. And if you don't do that, you are left behind. And I go back to Australia, and we say, oh yeah, we're building an innovation culture, she'll be right, mate. You have to step it up. You have to really commit to getting to customers quickly and to throwing away the technology that you love if it is not solving the problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Анна. Андрей сегодня с нами будет весь день на площадке, поэтому если у вас у кого-то остались вопросы, пожалуйста, задавайте ей. Коллеги, я еще раз прошу всех уплотниться немножко, чтобы у нас люди, кто стоят в барках, немножко смогли подвинуться. Коллеги, кто стоит в барке, пожалуйста. Я надеюсь, у нас не настолько неинтересно, что все пошли. Следующий у нас выступающий, это как раз спикер греческого происхождения, но который проработал, наверное, в большинстве стран мира, как раз, который к нам приехал благодаря нашему сотрудничеству с университетом Иннополис, Николаус Мавридис. Сейчас Николаус работает в университете Иннополис.
Great pleasure to be here and to be speaking to you, and there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, because I see that already there has been quite some progress in Skolkovo since the last time that I came some years ago. I see a big difference when it comes to the people, the buildings, and especially what is coming out of them. And number two, because I have, if you want, a deep-seated impression and wish that the country that was able to start, if you want, the space race, will be able to have a very significant contribution to the race towards true artificial intelligence. So my name is Nicholas Mavridis. I am a graduate of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and right now I just started with my appointment as a full professor at Innopolis University, where I'm actually moving my lab. So I will talk to you about a number of things. This is quite an one setting for my speech. I can barely see what the slides are. I was expecting to have a podium or something like that. But I think we will try to do our best. My speech had a lot of videos and other such information. So I hope you will enjoy the content. So first of all, I would like to ask you to imagine a world where robots are part of our everyday lives. And not only as helpers, as they have been in the past, especially in industry, but also as companions and friends. And furthermore, to imagine a world in which we can all take part in giant intelligent entities that are potentially made up from thousands of humans and machines. And our contribution in these entities could even be minimal, like 5 minutes of our time every day. And the intelligence of such entities might soon very far surpass the current limits of both human as well as artificial intelligence. And finally, I would like you to imagine a world where the big technological marvels, like the ones that you saw before, being made in the Silicon Valley, are not just created in this very specific part of the world, but people from all over the world, even from a small oasis city in the middle of the Arabian desert, or from a historical city such as Kazan in Russia, are able to contribute to the advancement of artificial intelligence. So these three have been my goals in the past. To be able to get robots to become part of our everyday life, to be able to start thinking about how we create collective human-machine intelligence, and number three, to make sure that we find a way that contributions to all of these fields are made from all over the world. And they have produced some fruit. In the words of the BBC, regarding my lab, the Interactive Robots and Media Lab, can we take a video? Yes, exactly. So this is the Android robot that we see now, which we created in the lab, which was back at that time in the United Arab Emirates.
As well as being fluent in English and Arabic, he can hold a conversation with humans. He looks for information about us on the internet and uses that to chat with us. He'll also remember it for the next time you meet him. But this lab isn't in Japan, China, or the United States. It's in Al, just an hour's drive from the UAE capital, Abu Dhabi.
So this was a small sample of the work that I have done. You will see much more in the next slide. Let's continue. Now the big goal would be to actually be able to get projects of this level and also to commercialize projects having the basics in Innopolis. And right now in Innopolis, in Kazan, we have the humanoid robot that you see, the AR601, which has started to barely walk, but slowly we're actually getting it to become much more intelligent, giving it vision and conversational abilities and abilities to learn. So some things about my background. I'm originally from Greece, from Thessalonica. I did my PhD at the MIT Media Lab, developing a Congress Lab. And my basic, if you want, interest has been robots and natural language, and robots that are able to use natural language to connect to what is happening in their environments. And also did quite some work in social robotics and a number of other things, and I have served in leadership and volunteering positions, such as, for example, the Drones for Good competition from the Prime Minister's Office of Dubai and many more in the IEEE. Academically, as we usually do, if you go back to mathematics, the mathematics genealogy project, and we trace my advisor to other advisors, I have a classic trajectory. It goes in the 1900s through Germany, passing through Italy, and ending up again in Greece. And it's interesting for you to see how much a big part of the AI researchers nowadays come from such trees in the mathematics genealogy of the world. You can find these trees online. And a few words about Innopolis. How many of you have heard about Innopolis, first of all? And what do you know about it? What is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear about it? IT, right? So I guess a very big part of it is exactly IT. It is being able to modernize all that has been offered in traditional Russian universities, that has been very theoretical, and being able to move it to the next stage and also connect it very much to entrepreneurship and production. So Innopolis has just been moved to its new campus. It's a huge new campus. Right now we have around 400 students, but our capacity is for 4,000, and slowly we're building up there. We have, I guess, one of the only such master's programs in robotics in Russia, and I really encourage you to actually have a look at our curriculum and what we offer, and to also bring either your employees or yourselves to become students in it. We have a number of very nice international collaborations with leading institutes, CMU, through which we're actually running together our software engineering program, and also with Heim Zurich, with NUS, with KAIS, and so on. So, and one of the things that I always say to my students is that there's many good reasons to become a roboticist, and this is how we train roboticists at Innopolis. One of them, of course, is that it's a very interdisciplinary field. It's not just mechanical engineering, not just electrical engineering. Nowadays, a big part of it is cognitive science and artificial intelligence. The other good reason, so you never get bored. You always have things that you're interested in, and you can make them part of your everyday life and profession. One other very good reason is that there's a lot of applications for robotics that will make a big change to the world in the coming years, and not only in disabilities, but also in many other domains. The third one is that most of the work that we do in robotics is actually teamwork and not individual, so you learn how to work in teams. And the fourth is that, especially when you make intelligent machines, you have to sit down and really quickly think and understand models of concepts such as beliefs, emotions, interaction, goals. So in practice, you're doing philosophy and you're starting to self-reflect upon humanity, the human condition. So all of these are good reasons to enter robotics and very good reasons to apply to Innopolis. We are welcome to see you there. And there's many other ways to collaborate with Innopolis beyond our master programs. We do all kinds of master classes and other activities regarding robotics. So do come to see us. So what I will talk about is pretty much the following today. I will start with a big picture and a background regarding robotics today and the place of Russia in the world, especially when it comes to research. Then I will show you examples from 3 specific robots from my past work. One of which is more of a language learning robot, the other is more of a social robot, and the third is an android with facial expressions and affect. And then I will give you this basic idea of the human-robot cloud to which we have been working in the past. So this is a table of computer science output in terms of publications from 2008. And 2008 was a nodal year because it was the year in which for the last time the United States was above China in gross number. It's an interesting table. You will see that when it comes to volume, of course, Russia is not very high up. The US is at the top, China comes down. If you have a look at the real effect of the publications though and their impact, there is still a very big advantage for the States. Interestingly enough, if you have a look at the number of publications divided by the population of the countries, then who do you think would be the #1 country in the world? Singapore, actually, and Hong Kong. So very small countries with a lot of people in the IT sector and into research, without a big part of their population in other domains. This is just a static view though. If you have a look at the dynamic view and you see what has been happening across 2 periods of 15 years, 1980 to 1995, as compared to 1995 to 2010. So here you can see colors showing the ratio of publications across these 2 periods. And the countries that had a very big increase are in red. The countries that were pretty static are in actually almost, if you want, blue, but this intermediate cyan. And the countries that have a negative ratio were actually in dark blue. So interestingly enough, the huge increase is exactly what you expected. It is in China, it is partially also in Iran, in the Emirates, in Oman, in Turkey. Although, for the case of these countries, the original baseline was very small. So even if you get a 5-fold increase, they started with 10, 15 publications and so on. However, the big decrease was in Russia and the surrounding countries. Now, the good news is that this has started to be reversed. So it will be interesting to see how this graph will look like 15 years from now, when we get the data for 2010 to 2025. Now, robots today are not confined to manufacturing anymore, as they used to be. And we have all of these other different sectors. My previous colleague talked about them. So we have robots in space, we have robots in water, we have UAVs and drones, we have medical robots, we have educational robots, and all the other things that you see, search and rescue, and so on. I will go to this later. The interesting thing is that when it comes to the people that come to robotics, we have people now that are not only from engineering, but also from IT and cognitive science. And there are three important factors that will play a very fundamental role for the growth of robotics in the future. And it's not very clear to people that just come to the field in the beginning. The first one is that a big part of the intelligence of intelligent robots will not necessarily be on board. So although we're all very much into autonomy, and there are cases where autonomy is important, you will see that a big part of the computer vision and understanding and even the speech technologies might actually very well be offered through the network and through the cloud as services. So this is one big difference. The second thing is that, as you will see also in the deep learning session nowadays, it turns out that the algorithm itself or the capability of people to select features is not so important, and with deep learning, the importance of data sets will become fundamental. And it's important to note that more than 80% of the data nowadays are actually being produced in 2 or 3 different places, right? In Google, in Facebook, and so on. The third thing to notice is that it's not enough to have just technology. It's very important to also have all of the supporting things around it. Even if you have the companies, you still need legislation and being able to use robots. See what's happening with drones at the moment. Even if we have a lot of applications that we could do, we cannot actually fly the things. And you need to have social acceptance and ethical frameworks. So these are 3 of the other surrounding factors that will play quite an important role in the future. Of course, there's a huge growth in the market itself. The figures are amazing, especially for Asia, and it's not just industrial, it's also service robots. And interestingly enough, this has been, again, a novel here, because for the first time in the financial report of the President of the United States, which is like a 200-page document, there were more than 10 pages devoted especially to robots and similar technologies. And if you have a look at the report, you will not only see amazing figures, such as the fact that 10% of the GDP growth and 16% of labor productivity growth can be attributed to robotics in the States, right? Despite the whole anxiety about the job market, you will also see interesting figures such as the one on the right. So if you have a look at the different kinds of professions that we have at the moment, there is a very big probability, an 85% probability, that professions that have an hourly wage below $20 will be replaced by automation within the next 10 years. So slowly, the smallest, if you want, the lowest level of our professions pyramid will become non-viable due to the entry of automation. And of course, there are similar, not so high figures, but also for the medium range, if you want. So we will see a very big transformation due to the effect of automation in our job market. And of course, this is the reason why a lot of countries are investing a lot of money in robotics. For example, Shinzo Abe from Japan, the president, has created the Robotics Revolution Realization Council, and he is talking about total value of activities on the order of 2 times $10 billion by 2020. But of course, this doesn't come without open questions, and there are a lot of open questions, some of which we will discuss today here in Skolkovo. The first one is robots and jobs. How will we deal with this very big shift towards automation? The second is robots and warfare. And really thinking about it, robots have the possibility of creating a very big, if you want, change in the way that warfare is being carried out, and also in global balances in the military, if you want, domain, but also in the economic domain. For example, with automation, how viable would it be for countries such as China to be able to rely on low-cost labor? How much of an advantage will they continue to have in the following years? There's other questions, of course, regarding ethics, regarding the upcoming singularity, and regarding the information asymmetry, as I call it. So what will happen if certain centers have a much more massive amount of data as compared to other centers? What imbalances will this create to the world? And all of these are questions that we will try to touch on. Now, let me give you 3 examples from specific robots from my work, just to get an idea. The first one is the Ripley robot, which was the main creation during my PhD at MIT. So this is a language learning robot. It is there to be able to learn the meaning of words through examples and to help you do things on a table. It's more, if you want, of a co-robot, a cooperative robot. And one of the very important questions here is how do you deal with the connection between words, senses, action, and purpose? Right? And
where is the red one? At the top. Look at the center. Okay.
So the robot creates a mental model of the situation and can
where is the red
multiple possibilities for the situation. It can only see a small part of the table. So it continues updating information on the basis of its senses.
What color are the objects? One is red and the other is green.
It can answer simple questions about the world.
Imagine the blue object on the left.
It can also get information about the world through language. It hasn't seen the left area of the table, but still it can imagine an object and create an expectation
Where
of
is
it.
the blue one? Well, it's probably at the left. And how big is the blue one?
Although it hasn't seen the object, it can answer questions and it's expecting to see something that matches the
So
description.
at the left. Okay.
Now the expectation was actually fulfilled, so it has the missing information.
Small.
And the robot can also remember things from the past and answer simple questions through its episodic memory.
How big was the blue one when your head started moving? I have no idea. Where was the red one when the green one appeared? Most probably at the top, but maybe not. Thank you. You're welcome.
So here the basic question was how do words connect to things in a meaningful way within the cognitive architecture of a robot. And you have a lot of elements from cognitive science. You have this episodic memory. You have the ability to learn different kinds of grounded meaning through examples and so on. So let me show you some later stuff. I won't go into more details about this. There's one more session in which I will speak about replay. One other project that we did had to do with the ability to create robots that keep the interest of people across long-term interaction. So usually when you interact with a robot, it happens once or twice within a day and that's it. Now the question is, how can you have a robot companion that will not make you bored the more time passes? And there were a couple of interesting examples from Japan that showed that although everybody was happy when they started speaking with the robot that came to their office, after 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, things became really bad. So we asked, what is missing? How can we make the situation better? And the fundamental hypothesis here was also funded by Microsoft External Research was that if you get a robot that has shared memories and shared friends with the people that it's interacting with, then it will have a more sustainable long-term interaction. So we created a robot that could remember the previous meetings that it has to do, that knew who your friends are, and would basically go through a simple stereotypic dialogue, reminding you about what you did in the past or about news regarding its friends. And then we also connected it to Facebook back then, even before the Facebook API actually. And we were able to get it to do, not only to get information from Facebook, but also to do dialogues on Facebook as well as physical dialogues. So this was the result. Play the video. So these are news about the common friend acquired through Facebook. This is a connection between a virtually connected friend, electronically connected, and a physical friend. And you can even get people to meet one another and not know one another. And these are memories from physical interactions. So that's a very, very simple, like 7-turn dialogue. But it turned out that this was much better than having something that was totally out of context. So having this creation of this common locus that consists of shared memories and shared friends could start creating a bond between the human and the machine. There's a lot of other results around Facebook, for example, some interesting results regarding face recognition, social networks, and I'll go into more details on that. And number 3, there was the Oppisanie expressive humanoid that you saw in the beginning. Let me show you some things about this to get a better idea. Again, one video, if you can play. So we have 30 degrees of freedom. This is actually a handsome face. We have a conversational system in Arabic, and actually later in Greek and English, now in Russian. And the character can speak about his own past. And you also have the possibility to do facial expressions that correspond to emotions. And recently we're also using actually Fraunhofer's short package to recognize human facial expressions. So we're starting to play, if you want, with emotional interaction. How can the robots understand the emotional state of humans, and how can they respond in an appropriate way? Let's play the second video too. Of course, this has created a lot of media attention back in the past. And such a project was able to get something like coverage around 30 countries around the world on television. And one of the other interesting things that we did is that we went around and tried to find out what were the opinions and attitudes of people about humanoid robots in this specific region of the Middle East. And there's a couple of interesting papers on that with studies that took place in shopping malls. This is actually flying with the robot and going to an exhibition. Okay. So I won't go into many more details, although it's interesting to notice that we found a couple of exciting results regarding the differences between people, for example, coming from India as compared to Europe, as compared to Middle Easterns when it comes to what they think about robots. And we can talk more about this in another session. One of the other things that we made about was the possibility to do embodied, if you want, telepresence within the robot, to get the human to his body and get the robot to copy in real time. As well as we try to connect the robot to virtual worlds and getting it to interact with characters in virtual worlds as well as humans. And also a small project on computer interfacing and being able to use it to make the robot do remote movements. And recently we have started exploring the idea of emotional storytelling using robots. So if you're going to have a robot that says a story to an audience, and if we are monitoring the audience in terms of its own body language, heart rate, breathing rate, and so on, how can we modulate how the story is being told in order to maximize the specific effect that we want to have to the audience? And one of the interesting questions, for example, that we asked is what is the relation between the facial expression of the robot, the emotion of the character in the story that is being narrated, and the emotion that the audience feels. And there's a couple of very interesting observations there. So these were 3 examples. There's a lot of other research that has been happening in my lab. Actually, some of the most successful in terms of impact has to do with qualitative calculus for spatial trajectory description. And and we did some work also answering the question of how robots should move around in spaces where people are. And there's all of these interesting psychological considerations. We have, for example, this whole idea of proximity psychology. If you want a mobile robot to be in a space with people, it should be able to approach them in an appropriate way so that they don't feel fearful. It should be able to enter the personal circles of people and exit in an appropriate way and so on. So quite some research on that. And also work on elaboration of humanoids and work on computer vision. Now, let me finish with an interesting idea that turned out to become a big, actually, research proposal in Demokritos in Greece, where I had my lab before coming here. So this is the idea of the human-machine cloud. And let me start with a story. So you see 10 balloons in this picture. How many of you recognize the balloons? How many of you heard about these balloons? Nobody. So this is actually coming from a DARPA project. There were 10 big red balloons that were placed in random locations around the United States in 2009. And there were university teams that were competing in the DARPA Network Challenge in order to do the following, in order to find them. So every team that could take part in it could use anything that they wanted. It could be cameras, drones, airplanes. It could even be humans in order to find where the balloons were. And the team that won the challenge actually came from the MIT Media Lab, it was Sandy Pentland's group. And what do you think they used to find the balloons? People. So they actually used social networks. They were able to recruit thousands of people that just looked around them, opened their windows and looked outside and reported whether they were seeing a balloon or not. And interestingly enough, within a number of hours, actually, they were able to find exactly where these 10 big red balloons were that were distributed in random locations around the United States. So what is the basic idea here? This is pretty analogous to the following idea. You actually don't crowdsource, but you crowd service. You get people to give you part of their sensing services for 5 seconds to the system, and then you connect them through the network, and of course do all of your cross-verification and so on. You get the result that you want. So it's very much like these thousands of eyes that you have on the tail of this bird. And the only difference is that in reality these are human eyes that are being connected to the network, and each one of them stays in the system for 5 or 10 seconds. And by aggregating all these thousands of human eyes, you're able to get this amazing, if you want, large-scale vision. Now let me give you a second example to see slowly where I'm going to. So these are the captchas, and we've all seen captchas in the past, right? So why do we use captchas? In order to make sure that we don't have a spam bot that is trying to make thousands of spam accounts and so on. So what's unique about captchas? It is a simple task, right? Any human can do it. You can actually show you some characters, tell you what the characters are, but it's a difficult task for machines. Right now, given the state of OCR, a lot of these configurations with the hidden characters and so on cannot be recognized properly. So how can we break captchas? How can we create spam bots that can break thousands of captchas? Again, similar idea. We can use humans. So what is the classic attack? You create a second website that has illegal material, and you get thousands of humans to break the captcha for you in order to get the material. So it's very, very similar, 5 or 10 seconds of human cognition or human perception that is being granted to the system in order to extend its capabilities and in order to fill in exactly these gaps in which artificial intelligence is not good enough at the moment by using humans that might not even be knowing that they are part of the system. So this is more like more generic crowd servicing on demand. You can use humans to sense, you can use humans to perceive and recognize and do other cognitive services, plan for example. You can even use humans to actually move things with their hands and do actuation. So where are we going with all this? I mean, think about traditional cloud computing. In traditional cloud computing, what do you have? You have computation as a service. You don't need to own the hardware, right? And you're able to get code as a service, you're able to get platforms and CPU time as a service or storage as a service. If we extend this in 2 directions, in order, number one, to have not only machine computation and, for example, AI algorithms like the ones that Microsoft is now offering through the Oxford project and so on, but also human cognition offered through the network. And if we don't only have cognitive services, but we have sensing and actuation on the cloud, then you get a very different kind of cloud. It's a cloud that has the ability to look at the world and perceive what's happening in different parts of the world. It's a cloud that has the ability to affect the world, either through robots that are moving things around, or drones, or humans that are actually doing actions. And it's a cloud that contains the best of both worlds, both human services as well as machine services. So this was the idea of the human robot cloud, and together with this there was a whole proposal about how then you're able to specify all of these kinds of services and fluidly connect them in real time. And in this, you don't have anymore something like the eyes on the peacock tail. You have something that's much more as a metaphor, something like these thousands of hands in this incarnation of the Buddha dance. And if you have a look at it, these are a lot of people, but they look as one person. And each hand not only has the ability to move things, but it also has the ability to see on its own. There's an eye on every hand. So this is what you're able to build with the technology of the human robot cloud. And of course, this can extend to large scales. You can cover whole cities, and you can start thinking about the commercialization, for example, of sensing services, either human-based or camera-based or drone-based and so on. So this is pretty much it. This is a basic idea. Let me now conclude, if you want. So what I talked to you about were some things about my background and about Innopolis, and also about where robots are going at the moment, where the picture of Russia in the world seems to be when it comes to robotics research. Number two, 3 examples of specific robots: a language learning robot, a social robot that can talk with people and have long-term interactions with them. And number 3, a robot with facial expressions, a museum robot or a shopping mall robot, if you want. And finally, I talked to you about this basic idea of the human robot cloud, how we are able to start bringing human services of sensing, actuation, and cognition in the cloud, and combining them freely with machine services. So we are at a crossroads when it comes to the evolution of AI today. There are things in which machines are still better than humans are still better than machines, and things in which machines are getting better than humans. It's important to think about three factors for the future of robotics. So offloading intelligence outside the body, and the intelligence market, if you want, in the internet. Number 2, the importance of data and what we might be able to do to counteract potential information asymmetries. And number 3, the societal, if you want, interface, legislation, acceptance, and so on. So I will just close with a very simple idea. The world in 50 years from now will be a very different world as compared to what we're living in at the moment. And we're going to have all of these other intelligent entities that we will be interacting with on a daily basis, be it humans, be it robots, be it virtual characters, be it all kinds of different prosthetics. So it's important whenever we create these technologies to always think about how this will become part of the wider ecosystem, and how we will be able to get harmonious and mutually beneficial symbiosis within this new ecology of the world that we are building. And of course, this is not very different to some of the visions that the ancients had. So for example, if you have a look at Plato in the Timaeus, he was certainly saying that you can conceptualize the world as a single unitary being that has a mind. And within itself, you can find all other entities similar. So this is it from me. Thank you very much. And apologies that I had to be looking up all of the time, because that I'm used to have a monitor somewhere down here when I'm giving my talks and so on. There's also a number of TEDx talks that I have given in the past, and you're most welcome to have a look at them. There's 4 TEDx talks. Any questions that you might have? Yes? Should we continue with questions now, or should we?
Спасибо большое, Николаус. Надеемся вас еще раз увидеть в нашем фонде Сколково. И я приглашаю сейчас на сцену нашего неизменного спикера, который, наверное, я уже сбилась со счета, на скольких конференциях он был, Франк Шнайдер. Это университет Фраунхофера, Германия. Спикер, который не только уезжает, но он также еще любезно согласился быть ментором наших команд, активно помогает нам в течение года. Это одно из тех плодотворных сотрудничеств, то, ради чего мы делаем, наверное, эту конференцию Сколково Robotics.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to move on a little bit from visions, assumptions and dreams to real-world robotics, and that's what I will be talking about in the next 35 minutes. It's about robots used in hazardous environments, and we basically looking at three kind of theaters here where these robots are used: accidents, terrorism, and war. These are the basic applications of field robots in hazardous operations and emergency response. Robots have been deployed to Afghanistan, Iraq for counter-terrorism. They had also been used by the terrorists themselves. They were used in the accidents of Fukushima and Chernobyl. There are some world famous robots actually used in Chernobyl. And there were also robots used, thousands of them, in Afghanistan. Robotic competitions that facilitate field contests to work with field robots are, for example, the DARPA Grand Challenge, Eurofon, it's a EU-funded robot competition, and the Arrow. The DARPA is quite long going, it's now for 10 years. Eurofon is a brand new one, it's going on for about 3 years now, and Arrow is the oldest field contest for robots. The major difference between all of those competitions is the military or civilian orientation that they have. And as you could have seen from the slide before, is that the military part is playing a quite big part in the use of robotics, which are in the real world and not in the lab today. The focus of the different challenges varies, but basically they all facilitate some sort of accident or natural catastrophe to test the field robots. The European Union is currently focusing with Euroclone and some other contests that they have on radiological and nuclear scenarios. Like you see up there, that's the laser pointer. In the upper row you see Chernobyl. In the middle it's a nuclear waste storage in Germany, which went into an accident. They are not able to control the waste anymore. It's coming to reactions with the groundwater, and they have to recover all the nuclear waste that they put down there. And also we have in the low part the Fukushima accident. Now all these theaters that we see here will be used in the competitions to test the robots. So if you're going to compete in such a contest, what are the requirements, or what are the requirements for good field robots that you're looking at? And I'm not talking about lab robots, I'm talking about robots that are really in service. So the basic setup of a robot is, of course, sensors, vehicle, manipulator, communication, and software. But what do you need for a robust system? And you might recognize that slide from my talk of last year here in Skolkovo. One of the big topics in this field is standardization. And I'm not talking just about software, it's also about hardware. Standardization is one of the key issues if you work in this field. It tremendously speeds up the exchange between the different robotic groups. It is an enormous cost reduction in the sense that if you agree on an interface, the time to implement the software again and again is reduced enormously. You see a few examples of which interface standardizations I'm talking about. I will go into depth in the next few slides. I think most of you probably know the robot operating system maintained by Willow Garage. It's one of the big software pieces, one of the big frameworks that is out there, which is a sort of standardization. Because if you are interested, for example, in vision, and you need all the navigation software, the laser software, it's all there. You can download it, you can run it on your hardware if it is supported, and you can concentrate actually on your vision part and not bother with all the other aspects. So you have an enormous speed up in your development working with field robots. It's also, as I already said, enormous cost reduction because your people can concentrate on what they're actually employed for example, their PhD thesis, and do not bother with the rest of the code they don't care for. One of the most negative examples in robotics is actually the SIG laser scanner. There are thousands of SIG laser scanners used in robotics, and the driver for the SIG laser scanner is re-implemented over and over again instead of using one standardized, agreed-on driver which is available to the public. Available to the public is another point. In the AirRob, we offer codes and data sets to the people so they can use them freely, but one requirement is that if they develop software, they also give them away for free and make them available for the public. This is a thing which I would strongly encourage if you're working in a robotic community, is to enforce that the software you develop is publicly available. Another thing is, and one of my speakers before me was talking about that, are common shared data sets. There was a project by the European Commission, it was called Raw Seeds, which did a similar attempt. The idea is that you record all the data in your experiments and in your field tests and make them publicly available, so all the teams can participate in your experiments and rerun them and avoid the same mistakes you make just by looking at your data. So this is a very good way to compare your own software, your own solution to solution of other teams, and to, for example, make your simulation more real. Oops, that was one too much. The other point is there's a lot of lessons learned from the robot competitions, and most of them are actually failures. And this is a big disappointment in scientific publications, is that no one published its failures. They only published their success. But there are important lessons to be learned from the robot competitions like DAPR, Eurogon, and AirRob. And one, for example, is that most people rely on GPS. But when you go to the military field, no one would rely on GPS. It's common knowledge now that we have a lot of GPS in our environment, especially if you go underground, if you go into civilian catastrophe, network catastrophe areas, collapsed buildings, bunkers, mines, whatever. you don't have GPS. In the military field, you have GPS jammers. So we're talking about GPS denied environment. You have to live with that. You have to come up with other solutions like scan matching, SLAM, and all that stuff that's already available. But you must have it in a robust way so it can work outdoor. You're not always working indoor. It's not all things in the world are parallel or orthogonal to each other. The natural world is quite difficult for position estimation. Proper and intuitive man-machine interface. If you have ever been to a robot competition or you go out to one of the booths, is look at the interface. Most of the stuff, some robotic nerd is putting in code lines in a terminal window. This is nothing which will help the emergency servers in a hot situation where they are under stress and trying to save lives. You don't have time to put in code. You must have an intuitive interface and you must have situation awareness for the people, for the person operating the robot. He doesn't have time to interpret your crude sender data which is coming up on the screen as numbers or bars or whatever. And there's one misinterpretation in the community is there are vision people, there are laser people, there are radar people. Everyone is pushing his field, completely ignoring that no human is only relying on vision, on smell, on sensing. It's sensor fusion, it's sensor data fusion. You can't only rely on one sensor, you must have multiple sensors which give you redundancy and eliminate errors which come, for example, from vision through a laser sensor or whatever. This is a very important field. And the other one is multispectral. Why do most of the teams work only in visible light? There's thermal, there's radar. You can use so many different areas to sense. Everyone is just looking at the normal vision, which is a big problem with changing light conditions, for example. And in the lower part, you see basically a person in a mule scenario which should be followed. The first part is a normal picture, second part is a thermal image, third part is a laser image, and the fourth part represents the GPS data that's transmitted from the person to the robot, so the robot can follow the person. Only by the combination of these four sensors, we were able to follow the soldier through the field in all situations. If you rely only on one sensor, it will fail. Okay, come to the next part. Hardware standardization. So, okay, there are mechatronic universities. I do understand that everyone is interested in building its own system because it will be better than the other one. Okay, fair enough, if you're a mechatronic university. But what if you're just interested in vision, or a laser, or whatever, in cognitive aspects? You don't want to build a new platform, you don't want to re-implement all this stuff. You just want to buy a platform that is used by all the others to avoid the same mistakes and errors again and again. So I strongly recommend what the European Union and the US has pushing that also quite a few years ago to come to standardized platforms. So the people that are more interested in the cognitive science and the software part can concentrate on that, and the teams that are more interested in mechatronics can concentrate in providing such a standardized platform. But not only talking about the platform, but also about the payload carrier. This is a concept which has been implemented in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, is that we have a standardized common shell payload which can be exchanged between the carriers. So if I go to Switzerland to do some experiments with them from Germany, I don't take the robot, I just take the payload box, put it on their robot, plug in the power and the network, and here we go. It works. And the fantastic thing is actually that I can use my payload box even on my car. I put it on my roof, tie it up, put in power, put in my laptop, the network cable, and that I have the capabilities of the payload box go with me, because the intelligence and all this stuff is in the payload box, it's not in the chassis. So having this construction speeds up the development of new techniques in robotics very, very much. Yeah, lessons learned. There are some really bad experiences in the robotics community. And the first upper grand challenge, a lot of teams basically failed because of wiring problems, cable problems, bad mechanics, broken bolts, whatever. So one important lesson learned is that you have to have proper hardware. You can't concentrate on your software if your hardware starts failing over and over again because of loose cables, of bad wiring, and all the stuff that comes with it. And again, use the existing industry standards. I mean, go to the automotive industries. They have cars that goes 300,000 kilometers with one engine and one wire. So why don't you use the standards that are available and tested and mature already in the industry? Why develop it again and again? And it's not a USB connector that is a good connector. Believe me. There's one thing that really bothers most of the judges on the robot competitions is the use of Wi-Fi on robotics competitions. It's crap, people. It's good for your office environment, fine. It's good for your hotel lobby. But hey, you're talking about emergency situations. Everyone is using its phone. Every phone has Wi-Fi. Every toaster has Wi-Fi. Every camera has Wi-Fi. Every camera has GPS today. And they're all jamming each other. Wi-Fi is the most worst choice you can make for communication with a robot. Don't use it. And the other way is, when I see people having a Velodyne laser scanner on the robot, and they're piping the whole raw data of the laser scanner over the radio link, and wondering that it doesn't work. It's saturated. You have to filter your data. No human processes all data it sees. It filters. It filters down to the basic things needed to cope with the problem. Don't put all the data you receive on the radio link. It will lead to absolute catastrophe if it goes into the field. Mobile manipulation, that's a big thing coming up. Most of the teams, and also as you can see on the last upper grand challenges, that they move on from the navigation and simple problems to the manipulation task. But the only robots are available commercially now with a manipulator is bomb disposal. But all the old bomb disposal robots have just one arm. Now here's a topic for you. Try to bind your shoelaces with one hand, okay? It's a funny approach, maybe for a party, but it doesn't work if you have to save a human life. Okay, so in this area, in the field service, Zarba's environment, you need to have at least two arms. There are already, from Canada, as far as I remember, coming solutions with 3 arms, but that might up in something looking like spaghetti when they use them. Also, what we discovered recently is that 2 fingers, so the parallel gripper, is not enough. If you want to do medical service and some more complicated manipulations, you need to have at least 3 fingers on your robot. This is a very hard problem. It's not easy to solve, and you need a good intuitive interface, as you have seen on the slides before, where we mapped the movement of the human arm onto the manipulator. I think this is state of the art. That's something you shouldn't go below, but it's a hard-working topic to work on. The last part is actually testing. I see a lot of teams on the aerob. When they arrive at the aerob, it's the first time that the robot has left the lab. Okay? and then it starts raining. Oh, my robot! So the first thing they do is they put a plastic over the robot. Hey, if you're a firefighter, it's water all around you, and you try to save lives, and the one with the robot says, ah, no water. No. So if you go to a contest like DAPA, like Eurocon, like Aero, hey, your robot should be at least cope with the rain that you have outside here. And it's not enough to do it on the university parking lot. Go to the user, go to a fireman, and say, I would like to train in the same environment as you do. And you will have a lot to laugh about, and you have a lot to work on when you come back to your lab. If you don't do that, you will fail. Or you might win if the others are even worse than you. But testing in real scenarios, in real environment, really outdoor, with the user. Give the user the joystick and see what he does with the system. And you will have enough input for your research for the next 10 years. Also, if you test, do it in a planned way. It's not just, oh, I can go back and forward, nice. But you have to do documentation, you have your record. That comes back to the common shared data sets. Record your data so you can replay it in the lab, see where it went wrong, and fix the errors that you have. If you don't do that, you will run into the same trap over and over again at each contest. And you might even not recognize the error the first time because you didn't see it. So planning, recording, documenting your problems is a core thing that you should do when you work in field tests. Especially that because the hardware might be not available all the time, so the common shared data set is actually a good thing to work with. We did a survey for the European Commission in robotic experts, and the topics that they are interested in within the next 3 years. It was not a really big surprise, but we did a Wordle on that. What you can see is basically reliability is a big thing, humans, autonomous, communication, as you can see, and some other stuff. But there's no surprises in the big words that come up here. So, put it in a nutshell, I have to look at it myself. Get all the stuff rock solid. If it breaks, you're done in the competition. Usually you can't fix the stuff when you're in the competition. So testing. Get it rock solid, get the basics done and working. Keep it simple. There are a lot of people who try to do easy things with Kalman or particle filters or whatever. Hey, okay. But first of all, you should have a look on the data that you get and try to figure out if the complexity that you introduce with new methods is worth the benefit. Maybe simple methods will do the same without introducing that much complexity into the system. It makes it more easy to handle, and you have quite similar results. Standardization, as I said, in hardware and software. Use the standard framework. If you don't like it, well, team up with other robotic universities and develop your own software framework. No one is going to stop you when you do that. You don't have to like ROS. Except, well, ROS has a lot of flaws when it comes to multi-robot systems, but it's a start, okay? Solid chassis. As I said, I would strongly advise to build up a community that will come up with a standardized chassis and payload concept, which is, as I said, a thing that the European Commission is looking into, and I think it will be a great benefit for the Russian robotics community too. Communication, as I said, avoid Wi-Fi as a primary communication link. There's good stuff out there. I just learned from Ryazan University, for example. They have a radio, they are a radio university. there's stuff in your country that you can use, which is certified and legal. Use it. Everything is better than Wi-Fi. Testing in real environment. Also talked about that. But one important bottom line here is hardware is the heart of the system. It should work, yes. But again, you have a cognitive system. The whole bolts, wires, and computers is nothing without good software, with good cognitive software that gives you the ability to cope with the changing and harsh environment that you meet in these kind of theaters that I was talking about. And here I stop with a picture of a walking machine. Each of the wheels that you see is attached to a leg, so the thing can actually walk and can use its arm, change the tools that it has. And the manufacturer came to us and we developed a cognitive system and a man-machine interface for the robot. Thank you very much for your attention. If there is time for questions, I'm looking to the wizard. No questions. I'm sorry, if you find me somewhere around here, if you have anything to talk about, just contact me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Хорошо. Коллеги, а следующим спикером у нас будет Павел Кишняк, который, несмотря на русское имя, достаточно длительное время живет и работает достаточно успешно в Штатах. Павел, на каком языке будет у нас? Да, Павел даже делает презентацию на русском языке. А слайды будут на английском языке. Но я думаю, мы с этим справимся. У кого проблемы с языком.
Я работаю в компании Opисание. Сегодня я расскажу о том, что мы делаем. Я постараюсь эту презентацию рассказать на русском, я обычно на английском рассказываю, поэтому будут некоторые забавные фразы. Но я думаю, все будет так понятно. Немножко обо мне. Я в прошлом выпускник МГУ. Более 5 лет я работал в компании Microsoft над разными темами робототехники. У нас было несколько успешных проектов, такие как Microsoft Robotics Studio. К сожалению, самые интересные и амбициозные проекты так и не вышли. Последние 5 лет я работаю в компании Robotics. Название Robotics означает добрый дух по-гавайски. Но территориально мы, к сожалению, находимся не на Гавайях, а в солнечном Сиэтле. Наша цель — создание автономного робота, который будет добрым другом и помощником для стариков, людей с хроническими болезнями или инвалидов. Почему такая странная задача? Почему для стариков? Обычно инновационные технологии не делаются. Все хотят что-нибудь делать для молодежи и хипстеров. Проблема в том, что на нас надвигается так называемое седое цунами. Это изменение в демографии населения, где процент пенсионеров и стариков становится все больше. Сейчас поколение в США бэби-бумеров выходит на пенсию по 10 тысяч человек в день. По прогнозам, к середине этого столетия процент пенсионеров будет больше 20% в США. Людей старше 85 будет почти 20 миллионов. В Европе очень похожая картина, особенно в Германии и Италии. Ребята, от кого все видеокамеры? Зачем видеокамеры? Сейчас, одну секунду. Отлично. В Японии уже эта ситуация происходит. В Японии уже сейчас около четверти населения пенсионеров, и по некоторым прогнозам это достигнет 40%. Кто же заботится и будет заботиться о всех этих людях? Сейчас основная нагрузка идет на семьи. Однако это так продолжаться не может, потому что в семьях все меньше детей и все меньше семей с детьми. Демография расходится. Та же самая ситуация с медицинскими работниками, которые заботятся о стариках и пенсионерах. 90% домов престарелых в США, у них нехватка кадров. На данный момент количество медсестер, которые не хватает, около 120 тысяч. Через 10 лет, по прогнозам, это будет почти в 3 раза хуже. При том, что заботиться нужно все больше и больше. А 80% пенсионеров, у них хотя бы одна хроническая болезнь.
Работает.
С возрастом ситуация становится все хуже. Ребята, поставьте камеру в покое, а? Пожалуйста. Пропадает картинка.
Появилась.
Одна из проблем, что все принимают лекарства, почти 90%, в среднем по 4 в день. При этом больше половины не соответствует режиму принятия лекарств, которое им нужно. На данный момент стоимость несоответствия – это почти $100 миллиардов в год. Это происходит от того, что люди не пьют лекарства, и пьют слишком много, у них осложнения, и они попадают на скорую помощь. И эта цена попадает на страховые компании, на людей, на госпиталях. Стоимость заботы о стариках сейчас в США на верхней планке, если человек находится в доме престарелых постоянно, это $75 тысяч в год. На нижней планке, если просто человек приходит несколько раз в неделю, посидеть с дедушкой и бабушкой, посмотреть, как у них дела, это $15 тысяч в год. Интересная наука здесь заключается в том, что почти 90% пенсионеров предпочитают жить независимо. И это то, где есть возможность для робота. Основная задача в том, что мы не пытаемся заменить людей. Людей здесь не хватает уже. И наша задача сделать роботов, который будет помогать старикам, делать их более независимыми, делать более доступными разные способы заботы о них, расширять их социальное общение, понижать стоимость и улучшать качество жизни. По нашему мнению, роботы могут быть ключевым моментом так называемых треугольников заботы между стариками, их семьей и медицинскими работниками, которые помогают. Возникает вопрос, а почему эта задача все еще не решена? Где персональные роботы, которые могли бы это уже сделать? На данный момент один из самых популярных персональных роботов — пылесос Roomba. Пользуется бешеной популярностью у кошек. Другой один из самых успешных проектов среди роботов — это игрушка Kirby. Недавно она снова вышла на рынок. Робот, домашнее животное компании Sony, к сожалению, уже не продается. Компания Honda давно работает над гуманоидом, помощь в домах, но он все еще стоит больше $1 миллиона. Один робот, который успешно сейчас даже используется со стариками и пенсионерами, это робот «Морской котик». Фаро. Одна из его лучших функций — это то, что он умеет мурлыкать. Стоит ли нам беспокоиться, что, может, вместо персональных роботов появятся роботы-убийцы терминаторов? Мне кажется, нет. Это может быть самое страшное, что нам нужно опасаться. Но мы считаем, что все идет лучше. Технологии развиваются. На данный момент есть два потенциальных клиента нам, которые могут справляться с теми задачами, которые мы поставили. Один — это робот-пэкер от французской компании Lever. Недавно купила японская компания Software. Другой — это небольшой настольный робот Джиба от одноименной компании США. Ну, теперь подходим к главному вопросу, о чем я хочу рассказать. Что, по нашему мнению, критические пункты для создания робота-компаньона? Самое главное, первый пункт, это какая ценность для конечного пользователя будет в этом роботе. Что это означает? Робот, в первую очередь, должен быть полезным. Он должен решать какую-то задачу, которая у людей есть. Какую-то боль, которую они хотят ее избавиться. Он должен это делать надежно. Например, навигация автономная в людских домашних квартирах и столях достаточно трудная задача. Распознавание речи тоже очень трудно сделать надежно. И другая вещь — это понять, какие есть альтернативы. Что можно сделать вместо того, чтобы использовать робот? Для нас это потенциальный конкурент. Это иммиграция. Например, в США, если спросить бабушку, кто о ней хочет заботиться, человек из Мексики или робот, в среднем люди более склонны говорить, что человек из Мексики. Во многих странах это не подходит. Например, в Японии такой же вопрос. Бабушки всегда предпочитают робот. Но основная ситуация в том, что, по правде говоря, основной наш конкурент — это не использование ничего. Решения на данный момент нет. Миграционная политика ни в одной стране не сможет решить эту демографическую разницу. Вторая часть — это насколько эта полезность будет стоить. Можно ли сделать то, что нужно, достигли технологии того уровня, чтобы это стоило столько, сколько люди готовы за это заплатить. По моему мнению, это один из основных факторов, который ограничивает инновацию почти в любой области. Да, варианты есть, но они просто слишком дорогие. Люди не готовы платить те деньги для того, чтобы это сделать. Хороший пример, например, робот Описание. Даже если бы он сейчас мог решить все задачи, за $1 миллион он не купил. Второй пункт — это волшебное впечатление пользователя от использования продукта. Что это означает? В первую очередь означает удобство, интуитивность взаимодействия, соответствие ожиданиям тому, как люди думают, это должно работать. Оно должно прощать ошибки и машины, и человека. Самое главное, оно должно регулярно восхищать человека, радовать чем-нибудь в своей модели взаимодействия. Другая часть впечатления пользователя — это то, что мы говорим как агент социального взаимодействия. Люди присваивают роботам характеристики персонажей даже по рисовкам группа. Дают им имена, когда даже одевают в какой-нибудь наряд. Для робота типа нашего один из главных пунктов — это какой персонаж робота, как он себя ведет. Как пример, например, я могу привести из другой области, из компьютерных игр. Есть игра «Портал», например, где персонаж Владос, который написан всего лишь для того, чтобы игра была веселее. Меняет игру принципиально в лучшую сторону. Другая часть в том, что роботы все еще несовершенны. Мы не изобрели искусственный интеллект. интеллект, и в ближайшее время этого не случится. Поэтому в каком-то смысле взаимодействие с роботом — это театр. И люди должны поверить в то, как этот театр работает. Если все слишком не соответствует самому себе, людям это не нравится, и они перестают это использовать. Другой пункт, который очень важен здесь, это адаптивность. Робот должен подстраиваться под каждого пользователя конкретно и под них всех по мере того, как роботы используются. Вторая часть — это общительная составляющая социального взаимодействия. Текущие интерфейсы голосового взаимодействия, они в основном запрос-ответ. Типа как Siri, Cortana и другие. Вы задаете вопрос, он отвечает, и на этом разговор закончен. Мы считаем это совершенно неподходящая вещь. Наша цель, чтобы робот мог в течение десятка минут поддерживать разговор. Разговор со смешанной инициативой, где часть разговора ведет робот, часть разговора ведет человек, выбирает тему, как это говорим. Взаимодействие многомодально. Можно использовать голос, есть тачскрин, и другие вещи, типа машинного зрения. То есть, например, если к роботу подходишь, он уже обращает на тебя внимание, улыбается, без необходимости того, чтобы ты что-либо делал. И самое главное, это тоже, чтобы робот понимал контекст текущего разговора, текущей ситуации. Снова технологии типа Siri, они без контекста. Вы задали вопрос, все, что есть. Как же выглядит робот по работе? К сожалению, я вам показать не могу. Все еще остался режим, все еще секретный. Но я могу немножко про него рассказать. Почему мы не разглашаем то, что мы делаем? Что наша цель показать это, когда оно закончено. Когда оно готово к использованию. На данный момент, за последние 5 лет, мы провели 5 полных итераций по аппаратной части, по железу. Сделали 8 итераций по программному обеспечению. Мы успешно прошли испытания по использованию. И в этом году у нас цель сделать испытания в поле. Чтобы робот был со стариками, пенсионерами, для нас предстоит на несколько дней. Далеко от света. Наш робот где-то метр 30 ростом, метр в диаметре. Он автономно умеет ездить в любую сторону и заряжаться сам. У него социальная модель взаимодействия, разговорная, чем-то похожа на ребенка. Он интегрирует разные технологии машинного зрения, акустики, распознавания речи и другие. И он подключен всегда к интернету, сколько хорошо Wi-Fi работает. Ключевые задачи, которые мы пытаемся решить с помощью этого робота, в первую очередь вокруг здоровья, вокруг принятия лекарств. Также помогать старикам с их кругом общения. Социальные технологии меняются каждый день. Сейчас есть Twitter, Facebook, потом Instagram появляется, завтра еще что-нибудь. Дедушки и бабушки по всему миру, они оторваны от этого, они не поспевают за темпом изменения. Поэтому они от социального общения совершенно оторваны. Например, вещи типа Twitter позволяют бабушке узнавать, что происходит с ее внутренним. Без необходимости того, чтобы звонить каждый день и узнавать об этом лично. Ровно и в обратную сторону наш робот может сообщать сыну или дочери, или бабушке, или дедушке о том, как у нее идет день. Когда она проснулась, как она себя чувствует. У нас есть много развлечений, которые есть на роботе, в основном разговорные игры. Самое главное, что мы пытаемся решить, это чтобы робот был компаньоном, чтобы робот был добрым другом для человека. У нас есть API для того, чтобы люди могли писать другие темы и возможности для робота. Почему это занимает так долго? Да, мы давно уже работаем, и все еще не вышли с этим результатом. Потому что делать естественную и простую модель взаимодействия между человеком и роботом очень трудно. Особенно для коммерческих целей. Не просто исследовательский проект, который иногда работает в лаборатории, а для повседневного использования. Но вот интерконнекты все еще слишком дороги. Одно из ограничений, которое нас тоже много раз останавливало, например, книга камер, все еще недостаточно хорошо вышли на рынок, недостаточно дешево, чтобы мы могли все это дело сделать. Ну и чтобы подытожить, мы считаем, одна из причин, почему в нашей индустрии похожие проекты на данный момент все еще проваливаются, это то, что недостаточно внимания уделено тому, насколько продукт ценен для пользователя и насколько удобно и волшебно впечатление взаимодействия с пользователем. Спасибо. Если на вопросы
Спасибо большое, Павел. Вопросы у нас в кулуарах, потому что мы слишком сжаты во времени. И я приглашаю на сцену профессора университета Сингапура Марсела Ангов. Паша. Коллеги, а мы можем вывести презентацию? У нас что-то картина Малевича.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let's wait for my slides to come up. Okay. Thank you very much. So my name is Marcelo Ang. I'm from National University of Singapore. It's about 12 hours away by plane. It's a very small country. We're about 5 million people, right? And it's 650 square kilometers. And out of that 650 square kilometers, 400 is land, and the extra 200 is reclaimed land. In other words, we use sand to make the country bigger. And there are 4 official languages: English, Chinese, Tamil, which is the Indian language, and Malay. So all our documents are in 4 languages. So I'm very happy to be capable to share with you my experience in robotics, and specifically robotics in unstructured and human environments. If you look at the history of robotics, it started with robots in factories. This is a picture of robots in Detroit doing welding, right? It's an environment designed for the robot where the work pieces go on big conveyors. Work cell 1 does something, goes to work cell 2, goes to work cell 3, right? But today, if you see robotics today, it has evolved much in different applications. For example, before, in the first one here, in the lower left, you have a light curtain, a gate. Human being cannot go inside the robot because it will shut down for safety. But in the other pictures, you have in the upper, in the right, the robot is inside the human body doing surgery in the heart, for example, and the person on top is the Da Vinci robot using 2 joysticks moving the tools inside the human body doing some surgical procedure. In the lower right, the robot is embracing the human body as an assistive device, helping carry heavy things. The one on the center, this is the self-driving car. The human is inside the robot car, and the robot provides service to the person. And of course, there's social interaction like what Mama mentioned earlier. Right? So what's the commonality about this application? Is the human being, right? The robot is now a tool for the human being. It's not separate from the human being. So I view robotics really as tools for humans working in unstructured and human environments, not the factories that I showed you for welding. It should work in an environment designed for who? Designed for human beings, for my home, for my office, in the shopping mall, in everyday life, where you cannot change the environment to suit the robot. The robot has to adapt to the environment. Right? So robots with humans in spaces designed for human beings. Unfortunately, that's a challenge up to today. Most successful robotic applications, right, require you to change the environment, so to build a factory designed for the robot. But if you want to bring the robot out of the factory to my home, if you visit my home, if you visit my office, everything is a mess. Things are not worse they're supposed to be. Because of that, the robot is unable to operate. And I don't want to change my office, my home, because of the robot. The robot has to adapt to it. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, right, for robots to adapt to the environment. And what are the things that needs to be done, right? Because why or what are the important application robots? I call it the 5Ds. These are tasks that humans ought not to do. Dangerous tasks, for example, nuclear waste, for example. Demeaning tasks, cleaning toilets, things that are very dirty tasks. Degrading for a human being, right? And the final D, which I started working about 6 years ago, the most fulfilling is driving a car, right? Because I think humans have errors in driving a car. That's the cause 95% of accidents is due to human errors. So if we can get machines to do that, to help us eliminate the 5Ds so we can live a better quality of life, right? Let machines do what they ought to do, and humans can enjoy that better. So robotics is the key solution for doing this. And so the focus, perhaps the trend, is really how humans and robots can work together as a collaborative system to let the robot do these 5Ds, but not completely. The humans still supervising the robot in a high-level way, right? In a comfortable office, for example, using telerobotics, for example. And there are two important questions that are to be asked. Is what is the right level of autonomy? What should the robot be able to do on itself? And how should the human interact with the robot while the robot is doing the task? But together they do a collaborative system to do the task together. So there are many problems to overcome to have this three. First is, today we have industrial robots, but they are very hard to use, very hard to program. Right? They're hard to set up. You need to learn the language of the robot programming language. And so after you set it up, you program to do a task. Let's say that you need to do a different task, you have to reprogram it. And if smaller factories need to keep reprogramming the robot every time there's a new task, it becomes very complicated, very tedious. People might just say, I must well do it manually, because human beings are very adaptable to keep doing the task. If you look at technology, perhaps the first camera that I use, or first consumer device that you use, perhaps came with a thick manual. I'm sure if you buy a phone or a TV today, I don't even know if it comes with a manual, right? Perhaps you get a phone, you turn it on, you know how to use it, right? So the challenge is, can we make a robot like that? You get a robot, you turn it on, you don't need a manual, and it can be so nice, so easy, so intuitive to program a robot to do. Right? But to achieve that, robots must be intelligent, must be able to understand things, must be able to do things. You cannot just write software to make it easy to use if the core capability is very limited. Right? So you need to improve that. So we need to improve the hardware. Unfortunately, most robots today are built with machine tool in mind, the CNC machine tool, designed to be very precise mechanisms to go to XYZ position accurately, and no matter what, just go there, because it's doing some drilling, some cutting, right? But human beings are not like that, right? I move my legs, I walk. If you ask me what are the joint trajectories, what are the angles that my knee, my waist, you just walk, I don't even know. But how do I know I'm walking? Because I feel my joints, right? And that's one thing that's lacking today in industrial robots. We don't have feeling in the joints. So all the joints are now position control, they're not torque control. So it's very important to have a torque control robot to be able to do such tasks. Another thing is the structures of robots today are influenced by industrial robots. They're huge, they're scary, you don't want that to be beside you. So there's a lot of interest to do soft robotics. Robots that are made of soft materials like our hand, even if you hit the hand, my hand, you won't be hurt. Only then, so there are two things, is one is intelligence, software, one is hardware, the basic capability of the robot. Only then can we have robots truly working in unstructured environments like everyday life, involving human beings operating in such environments. So here are some a sort of snapshot of the capabilities. For example, the lower 6 blocks are some of the technologies that we need to develop in order to bring them available for everyday life. To summarize all these 6 blocks, one is how the robot can interact with a human being, right? The user interface, because it's going to work with humans. And second is, okay, you have the robot to do a task. It needs to have sensors. It needs to understand, for example, make a perception from the sensing. There are many things, for example, how do I recognize using my eyes? For example, I suddenly get kidnapped or be suddenly thrown in a new island. Let's say I haven't seen any human being before, and you open your eyes, you see a human being, you see a man, you see a girl. How do you notice? Pretty much after a few days that there are two kinds of people. One is a male, one is a female, right? You will know that. Although perhaps today sometimes it's harder to tell, right? But in any case, it's so hard to do this. If I ask you to write a computer program to do it, do you say that if it's two eyes, two round things with a soft skin, that will be a girl? It's not like that. We do a lot of learning from, I don't even know how we do it. That's why there's a lot of interest in machine learning, in deep learning, that you from data, you tell, this is boy, this is girl. You tell a million such data, perhaps you can distinguish them. So there's still a lot of need for understanding, perception and understanding. And let's say in robotics, you have perception, you understand what's going on, then you know the task, you need to do some planning, decision making, and based on the decision, you can assess whether is your decision correct or not by doing learning, right? By doing machine learning. You make a decision, and the decision didn't quite turn out right. Next time you have encountered the same situation, you can always change the decision you make, right? And that's all in a multi-hierarchical planning and control architecture. There are some things that you do at a lower time scale, some you do that's very reactive. For example, if I touch a hot object, I will quickly move my hand. I need to think about it before I move my hand. And perhaps you know that if you cut a chicken's head, it can still run, right? So there are certain low-level ones, there are certain high-level ones. We need to all create this in a robotic system with an intelligent mechanic, because this is a software robotic. So the following part of the slide, I will quickly go through many of the projects we're doing along this line and tell you more about Singapore in the indirect. The marine and offshore industry is very big in Singapore. I don't know if you know the oil rigs, go to drill oil, right? I think 5 years ago, the number of oil rigs that are in the world, right, that are operating in the world, 70% of them are made in Singapore. And in the shipyards, the environment is so unstructured, it's so hard to do such robotic applications. Because in the shipyard, everybody is doing it manually. Now why is manually? Because the structures are so big. You cannot put the whole ship in a conveyor belt, right? You have to build, it's like building a house, right? Like construction, it's very hard for a robot to do because you have to go there and actually do it. So it's very challenging, and certainly it's a very unstructured and human environment. And so we have a big project on doing that, and specifically is to create these structures that are 120 meters high. These are the legs of an oil rig, it's a jack-up rig. Can you imagine making this leg 120 meters? So they're made using structures, using pipes that are about 1 meter in diameter or 0.75 meters in diameter. And you have to weld them, so it's like a T joint, a K joint, or Y joint. You see all the structures there. So this is how they build it, and that's done manually by welding. And so what we propose is to develop a portable mobile robotic system to do this. And so this is some of the things we're doing for welding in the shipyard. And another interesting thing in shipyards is when you're welding big structures, normally it's not only welding one layer. You can see here there's about 15 layers. You have to do it one by one. Just to give you an idea how tedious this is to weld a joint, right? It takes 2 workers, 2 days, right? Working on 12-hour shifts, 2 shifts a day. Just for one weld, for one joint. They're doing 50 welds because they have to do it slowly and they have to wait for it to cool down. And there's also welding past planning because the heat might distort the joints, etc. So we want to automate that process. Another interesting application is for polishing of turbine blades. That's another industry project we're doing where we want to polish, like make it smooth a marine propeller blade. And the interesting thing about this is the marine propeller blade is there's force control. And we don't know exactly the dimension. It's something like the robot must have a feeling just by us polishing and no pilot unknown geometry and while exerting a constant force. In the area of intelligent mechanics, we have a lot of projects on soft robotics. This one on the left, the video should be playing. Okay, it should autoplay. And this uses silicon. It's air activated, and if you make a silicon with air channels inside, by pumping air inside, can it change the shape? So you can do things like this, and if you can have a hand that's like this, or an arm like this, since it's soft silicon and it's air, it's going to be human friendly. This is one example. These are another example of you can also make small little silicon grippers for very delicate handling. This is the only disadvantage, you need an air supply of power. Another kind of soft material is called a dielectric elastomer. This is the same as 3M for double-sided tape, right? It's very stretchable.
Ready, 1, 2, 3, go.
If you stretch it and you put carbon grease on the top, carbon grease below because it's a conductor, and you provide positive voltage on top, negative voltage on top, because of the attraction, it introduces Maxwell stresses that compresses the material further and it expands further. So when you turn off the voltage, it contracts naturally. So when you take it on off, and on off, it becomes like this. So this is a fundamental property of a material, the viscoelasticity that's electrically activated. The creativity or innovation is how do you use that property to create something useful. In this case, perhaps like an inshore mechanism. My project, I always dream of using this to create a robotic finger, right? If you have many robotic fingers that take 10 by 10 in your massage chair, you sit down and all the fingers will massage. Even your sit, right? There's no very good massage chair today. It's very lousy, but if you can use something like this, and it's made of soft material. This is easily available. Is 3M rubber tape, double-sided tape. We're experimenting also using latex rubber. The only disadvantage, it's not really a disadvantage, you need very high voltages on the order of 5,000, 6,000 volts, but the current is very, very low, so it's safe. And you can always do circuitry using an AA battery, 1.5 volts, to generate 5,000 volts, no problem, right? Because the current is very low. These are some other projects that we're doing for our National University Hospital. For example, this bed is a power assistant. It's like power, we put omnidirectional wheelbase under the bed. And with a handle that if you push the handle, you know you're pushing it. Rather than having a joystick, right? We put a sensor that if you're pushing this way or pushing to the left, right, it can be pushed easily. And you can change how sensitive it is, so you can only have one person pushing. So you think that the attachment is similar to what we have in our chair, the swivel chair. The swivel chair you can move easily, right? But instead of having passive rollers, if we put two motors per wheel, one to turn this way, one for driving. We're coordinating the motors, and we can achieve omnidirectional motion. Transportation and mobility is very interesting too. A very interesting problem in Singapore airport terminal services is baggage handling. Still human beings still doing that. Can we do it using robotic system? The Port of Singapore Authority, there's a lot of applications for transportation and mobility. Also for National Environment Agency for clearing leaves, cleaning the road sweepers, cleaning the dirt in the road. Now, I want to talk to you now about applications in transportation, because I mentioned, I think in the earlier talk there was interest in self-driving vehicles, and we started working on that 6 years ago. Among all the robotic applications, I think this is the most interesting. Why is most interesting? Because as I grow older, right, I want to really see real application, and transportation is the only application that affects everybody, whether you're young or poor, rich, young or old, rich or poor, man, woman, everybody needs to be able to be mobile. And with mobility, you have quality of life. As we grow older, I don't want to live alone in my home, and if I need to go to the shopping center, I call my son, can you come pick me up, bring me there? It would be so nice if I can just use my phone, like an Uber-like application, call a car, and the car comes pick me up, bring me to wherever I need to go. So if you give independence to people and transportation, it will really improve the quality of life. So that's what we're trying to do. As I said, Singapore is such a small place, so transportation is very sensitive. We want to encourage people not to own cars. We want to have a very good public transportation system. In Singapore, an autonomous vehicle is a one way to do that. First, we want to make our buses autonomous. Some of our trains are already autonomous, but the bus is still human-driven. We want to make all the taxis autonomous. We also want to create, because driving is one of the things that can be human. A human driver is tired. It's not unsafe. So we want to avoid situations like this. Now, when we talk about transportation, this is a snapshot of our university environment. There's the road, but it's not only road, right? Because sometimes in a typical university environment, you need to move from building to building, build engineering to computer science, but you don't go to the road, you go to big pedestrian walkways, right? So we need also a pedestrian environment. For example, to go to building E5, E1, you cannot take the road, right? So we need another kind of vehicle, a smaller vehicle, to bring you from building to building, and another vehicle, the second type, for bringing you from the road to the nearest train station. So we call it a multi-class mobility. The video is supposed to be shown, yeah. Supposed to be shown, yeah. Golf cart is related to autonomous. So you reserve it using a mobile phone application or web computer. You take it. So this is not traveling on the road, right? So the pedestrian environment. So we're very confident because it travels very slow. It can avoid people. We never had accidents. Not yet. We're close to the building, to the lecture theaters. By the way, this vehicle, we call it driverless jockey, but actually the name DJ is the name of my students who do this. All our vehicles, we have 4 vehicles and 1 car. They're all named after my first student who built that car. So this is Scott, my other student. brings you go there, then you get off, and then you take the car. It's the second class of vehicle where you now take the car to the nearest train station. So it gives you mobility from door to door, right? From where you are to where you are. So we have modified an electric vehicle, the Mitsubishi car. It's electric, but we put some attachment. You can see what we have used, and then it just drives itself. University campus and brings you to the train station. So what we're working on is really what we call the mobility on demand. It's something like a driverless Uber. And recently, my group has spun up a company called Autonomy, providing this software for autonomous vehicles. So again, why autonomous vehicles? Safety is the most important consideration. Also productivity. Imagine that your car doesn't have a driver, so your car doesn't need a steering wheel anymore, right? So you can have a car like a small little home that's moving around with sofa, and you can work there, it's connected. So even if there's a traffic jam here, you can still go to your car. Of course, accessibility. If you have too much to drink or you're recovering from illness, you can still provide you mobility and efficiency and environment, because most likely with an electric car, because an electric car is already drive-by-wire, easily connected to a computer for you to drive, right? So it's result in a more efficient use of the resources. So this is an area in Singapore where we want to designate like a test area in the Europe for using smart technology for air. So we have a train station, we have different areas that people can take the car. There's a recent study in Singapore, was done with my colleagues in MIT, that showed that in 2011, if you have cars that are moving around, right, let's say we replace them with autonomous vehicles, would it reduce the number of cars needed in the road? And if you're willing to wait 15 minutes, which I think is too long. If you need a car, my waiting time is 5 minutes. If it's more than 15 minutes, I get irritated already, right? But if it's 15 minutes, that shows that from 900,000 cars, you can reduce it to 300,000 cars by 1/3. And it makes sense actually. If you think about it, if you own a car, right, how many hours a day do you drive the car? Maybe 2 hours a day only, right? And the rest of the time is just sitting there occupying space. So if those other 22 hours can be used to serve other people who need mobility. So this is another video of our car project. We have also the YouTube video. If you search FM Autonomy. So this is our business. The first business we know. We have DJ, that's what you call. And we have also Scott. So this is an overview. This is what we do. We need to map the environment first. Because a unique feature of our cars, we don't use GPS. Because we want to operate in environments that are GPS denied. For example, tall buildings are bad for electric, where there are tall buildings. We want to operate inside shopping malls too, where there is no GPS. Inside the airport, we're coming to Singapore Airport to allow us to go plug in inside the airport so you can go from gate to gate. So this is the sensors we're using. We're using mainly 2D LiDAR. Instead of using Velodyne, which is very expensive that Google uses, which costs about $70,000, we use only a 2D LiDAR. But our LiDAR, you notice the one on the upper top in front is pointing 15 degrees below horizontal. And since it has a 270-degree field of view, as the vehicle is moving, it also captures what's ahead or what's on top, because it's still 50 degrees. So we build a 3D map that way. So we achieve 3D mapping by 2D LiDAR because the vehicle is moving. And the rest are just standard equipment that the real encoders and also the IMU for that reckoning together with the data. This is some more details on mapping. So in a new environment, we have to map it first. That means we have to drive the vehicle manually. It's something like you have a new visitor, first time, let's say me, first time in Moscow, somebody has to drive me around, then I can recognize things. But since the computer recognizing things, we won't forget. The computer doesn't forget. So next time you go to the same place, you don't need GPS anymore because you have seen it before. So this is how we build the map in our engineering campus. You can see as the car is built, you can see the map being adjusted. Right? You can see it's changing the shape. Why it needs to change that is something like human beings. You show me this, the next, not only one, but I'm driving, the same scene happens, appears at the same time, right? Like say now, I see this, as I move, I see the same thing inside changes. Since I'm assuming more experience, I can adjust. I can correct the map. You can see at the end, it becomes, you can see the road shifting left, shifting right. Yeah, like that. Yeah. So we have to map it first. It's okay because Singapore is a very urban environment. Right? We don't do exploration in a structured environment. So we have to really see it first, do the map. This is what we do in the how we avoid obstacles. Let's say it's going front.
Avoid unexpected obstructions, such as construction work. One key feature of our new approach is to exploit pedestrian intentions. We built a PPT model of pedestrian behavior, conditioned on their intentions as an embedded over intentions, online PPT plan in real time. Attention-aware online plan makes our autonomous vehicle more intelligent. When encountering a pedestrian standing still, the vehicle initially slows down. As the fleet gradually converges to the correct one, it then proceeds safely forward.
So initially it slows down, but since the battery, the correction is not dropping down. So that's not our prediction. So it's fun to test in a university environment. We don't have problems of getting volunteers because there are always people walking around, so they can always ask. So these are our vehicles right now. We have one car, truck, and about 5 buggies. We recently also converted a wheelchair to a personal mobility device into a certain kind of vehicle to make it autonomous. So this is the first time we did it in 2014, public deployment in our Japanese and Chinese gardens. This is a park environment where we deployed the vehicle. And here is a short video of that experience. Showing. Okay. Thank you. So we have 2 vehicles in our Japanese Chinese garden. It's supposed to carry only 2 people, but that's another. So before we see autonomous vehicles on the roads, perhaps this is an intermediate application in parks, if you have parks or constrained environments, not really open. That's much easier than you're going to give people rides and provide transportation for that, right? And the more videos are available on YouTube. Last year, One North is an area in Singapore that they allow the vehicles to test. And there are now 3 vehicles that pass the safety test for autonomous driving. One of them is vehicle. One North is a science park in Singapore where there are many technology companies. But it's open, when we test, right, it's open to the public. So we don't close the road, so we can test anytime. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So this is, we're doing that after today. We're improving our algorithms in the use of environment. recognizes pedestrians, stop. If there's an obstacle in front, it will go around it if possible. Right now we're traveling up to about 25 kilometers per hour on this street. So earlier I was mentioning that in robotics it has to adapt to the environment. We don't want to change the environment. That's the same philosophy applied to the self-driving car. Many people started to see maybe the traffic light itself can communicate with the car so that it knows whether it's green or red, but we don't do that, we don't rely on it. We don't rely on GPS, we want everything that is connected in the car itself. This is the last video I want to show. This is a fun video we did to see whether we can control the car remotely. So we have the same car, but we use a very cheap camera, stereo camera, with a pan-tilt motor. That's controlled by the early version of the Oculus Rift. So when the human being is recording the camera also turns. And we use the same that we use for playing games, right? Controlling the vehicle. They use controlling the vehicle using this gaming device, the steering wheel with the brake. But it's driving the vehicle is outside, in a different place. And the two images, video images, what the left and right eye sees. When I tried this, I'm not able to do it so well because I somehow